The First Row Sports Show. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook.
Once again to the sideline. Batted up. Oh, God! Stokely down the sideline. Can they catch him?
With your host, Darnell Duff.
Oh, Wade, what a play!
Alrighty, good afternoon and welcome to the First Row Sports Show, the third edition of the First Row Sports Show. Started this up at the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and now we're into the second round, joined today by Cody Buhler. Cody, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Now, obviously, you're the voice of the Portage Terriers of the MJHL. First of all, before we get to you talking about the playoffs, how are you enjoying that job as, the voice of the Terriers?
Oh, I love it. Getting to call hockey is probably the best job, as you know. Getting paid to watch hockey is great. And so it's been a treat and a lot of fun the last few years.
Now, can we even call it a job because we literally get to do something we really love?
Well, sometimes I wonder that, but there are moments, too, where it does feel like a job, but there's definitely a lot more of the fun.
No doubt about it. Now, let's get down to the playoffs. I know we got lots of series and we're not going to start things off with the Winnipeg Jets. You said surprise me, and I'm going to surprise you. First of all, I want to talk to about the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. A series, in my eyes, is one of the better ones in the second round, and I think the Boston Bruins, obviously, have your say on this, but the line between Pastrnak, Marchand, and Bergeron, how do you stop this line going forward if you're the Tampa Bay Lightning?
I don't know how any team's going to do it. Right now, one of the hottest lines in hockey, and when they're clicking, they're a team to be feared. And I think that the way they kind of went into the playoffs really spoke to how well they're going to do here in the postseason. And when I filled out my NHL bracket, I had Boston actually going to the Stanley Cup final because I take a lot of stock of how a team comes into the playoffs, and I think that the Bruins are dangerous. So I think it's going to be a tough task for Tampa Bay. But as for how they do it, I'm not sure if there's one real way because those guys can play so defensive. They can play responsible in their own end, and then they can come back and hurt you the other way. I think it's just got to play solid team defense. It's going to take all five guys on the ice in order to do it.
Now, there's obviously a saying that defense wins championships, and you look in that first game between the Lightning and Bruins, the Lightning actually heavy outshot the Bruins, but, you get 6 goals, you're probably going to win a hockey game, but a big saying is defense wins championships, and goaltending-wise, Tuukka Rask was not, I wouldn't say he was horrible, but he wasn't very good against the Toronto Maple Leafs, but then he donned some new pads in the first game against the Lightning, and he played very good in that win. How important is his success, more so in the Bruins having success going forward in the playoffs?
Well, yeah, that's going to be important, and exactly like what we saw for the Winnipeg Jets in that first game against the Predators. Just because you're outshot, it doesn't mean that you're not going to win the game. It's about quality of scoring chances, where the shots are coming from, and you also talked about defense, and team defense and goaltending can steal you a game, and all of a sudden, of course, as well, win championships.
Now, we talk about, getting outshot, and we're seeing so many shots these days. Like last night, 50-41. The Jets had 50 shots. Pekka Rinne made 46 saves, and Rinne made 37 saves. Like, why are we seeing so many shots these days in the playoffs, but not that many goals? What's the rhyme to the reason to that?
Well, I think, and I can speak to this, the first game for Nashville and Winnipeg with the amount of shots there, I think something is being said for getting shots to the net, and I know that's always preached during the regular season, but guys, they're thinking about, well, I just got to get it on net. Something can happen. Maybe something's going to happen. I'm just going to put it on net. And so when you guys are putting more shots on net, you're seeing you're seeing higher volumes and higher numbers in that way, but then not necessarily always the greatest caliber of shot. And because defense and everybody's just a little bit tighter in the playoffs, just trying to get something on net to begin with, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be tougher for the goalie to stop. I don't know. That's just a theory.
So with that being said, we look at that game one win from Boston. They had 24 shots. So should teams change the way they, approach offensively and worry about getting quality of shots over the quantity of shots, or, 50 shots, still put as many as you can to the net?
I'm a big believer of quality over quantity. But I think also, though, when you do have the quantity, eventually they're going to go in. And we saw kind of with the Winnipeg Jets against Minnesota, when they were just throwing shots towards the net, especially in game number 5, it finally just clicked, and they finally started going in, tips from the side. And I think for that Bruins series, they're obviously going to want to get more shots on net. But I think that when you do eventually start throwing more shots, yeah, they're going to eventually start to go in for you. But again, I'm a believer in quality over quantity.
Now, obviously, very early in that series, just one game done going into game 2 tonight. Who are you picking to take, the series?
Well, like I kind of mentioned before, I am taking Boston in that series. I filled out a bracket, actually, before the playoffs started on NHL. I don't know. Did you fill out one too, Darnell?
Yeah, I did. I picked Boston. I'll tell you after the show who I picked for sure.
Okay, fair enough. But I picked Boston, actually, to go to the Stanley Cup Final. So I picked Boston over Tampa Bay. And surprisingly, just wanting a little bit of bragging, actually, I'm going to just flat out brag here on this show. I actually picked the first round correct. And you can go online, you can verify my bracket. I had a first round perfect, 8 for 8. And so I had Boston moving on over Tampa Bay in the second round.
Now, if I can also brag on my own show, I also went for 8 for 8, and I picked Boston to go to the Stanley Cup. So we're going to have to find out what other brackets. So let's switch over to another series, and it's the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Washington won Game 2. Is this finally the year that the Washington Capitals get over Sid the Kid and the Penguins, or will this eventually end up in another heartbreak for Ovi?
Well, in my bracket, I picked Washington, and in my heart, and since watching the first round, I've switched to Pittsburgh. I kind of like to see greatness, and so Pittsburgh just winning one more time I think would just be hilarious. But I think it's going to be a pretty tight series. It's already 1-1. So with my head, I'm picking Washington. With my heart, I'm kind of picking Pittsburgh.
Now, based on past results in the playoffs, what makes you pick Washington? Like, they haven't had that success, especially against the Penguins. Maybe it was different if they're going, against Tampa or Boston, but they haven't had that success against the Penguins. What makes you pick them?
Well, I don't know if it's just them getting frustrated that they always lose to Pittsburgh. I think there might be some of that, some little resentment of having always losing to them. I'm not quite sure if Pittsburgh is the same team that won the Cup the last 2 years. I think just with how the team has changed, I think there could be an opportunity here for Washington to take it. And I think now that Braden and Holtby is back, I think he's going to be fighting to stay in the net. He doesn't want to lose that because, correct me if I'm wrong, he's been the starter since those first 2 losses.
He has, yes.
Yeah, so I think coupled with that, I think that's kind of why I'm going Washington maybe.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about that. Philip Grubauer got the Game 1 start, and understandably so. He was the hot goaltender down the stretch, and Holtby struggled. But for Game 2, in my mind, why was Grubauer still in the net after that Game 1 performance when Washington really had no means losing that series, but they won it? But why was Grubauer back in the net for Game 2? I understand he's going to start Game 1, but in my mind, Holtby should be in Game 2. He's proved that since coming in Game 3. He's been rock solid.
Well, I guess you want to show a little bit of confidence to your guy that if you say Grubauer is our guy going in, he's going to get game number 1 start. You want to show a little bit of loyalty that you don't want to just go away from him. If you really think he is the guy, you don't want to go away from him right away. So then I think that's probably why they went with Grubauer for at least Game 2. But then you lose 2 straight. Now it's all of a sudden, well, we're getting pretty close to do or die territory. So, okay, now he's not getting it done. Let's give Holtby a shot. And then Holtby's kind of taking it from there. So I don't know. I've seen teams do it in the past. I know the Portage Terriers a couple years ago. This is, again, not NHL, but kind of the same thing where the Terriers did basically you win and you're in, you lose and you're done, and they did that all the way to a Turnbull Cup. So I have seen it work at different levels. I'm personally of the mindset if you have a guy, stick with him. But when you have kind of 2 number 1 guys, I can kind of see sticking with him for 2 games.
The First Row Sports Show brought to you by Pass the Pop in Duff, and check out, they got all your suites in the Parkland, joined by the play-by-play voice of the Portage Terriers, Cody Buhler. Now let's switch over to the conference with the Jets. We're not going to talk about the Winnipeg Jets yet. We're going to talk about Vegas and San Jose. Absolute drubbing in Game 1, 7-0 in favor of Vegas. You saw Marc-Andre Fleury was having some, fun between the pipes, and the Sharks had nothing. Evander Kane was suspended. He doesn't play in Game 2, and the Sharks win. I don't know what that says, if that says anything, but it is worthy of us saying Vegas and San Jose going into Game 3 tonight. Does San Jose take a 2-1 lead on home ice where they are very good?
Oh, man. So many of these series are really coin flips. Like, I think at this point of the playoffs, it's really tough to predict. Really, all we do is speculate, and all we do is speculate anyway. But if I have to pick one, either San Jose, who's going to win tonight, San Jose and Vegas? Well, I'm just going to go with Vegas because they haven't lost too many in a row. And just the way that they've played this postseason, honestly, I was kind of hoping to see Vegas go 16-0. Just a small part of me after them sweeping the first round just would be unreal. But I'm going to take Vegas tonight. I think that they are way deeper than a lot of people give them credit for. William Karlsson, I love that story this year, and Marc-Andre Fleury. I'm going to take Vegas.
Now, do you think this is one of the more even second-round series? Whereas, I mean, when I say that, I mean other series, teams can maybe pull away. You look, maybe Washington can pull away, Pittsburgh can pull away. But do you expect this to be a pretty even series going forward, including tonight?
I think so. I hope so, just for the sake of watching. I think that really all of these series, though, can be close. I think the first round we saw a lot of lopsided series, and we only saw one Game 7. And so I think that really just goes to show, and a lot of the times it was the higher-seeded team winning. And so I think we saw a lot of lopsided matchups in the first round. Now that we are kind of getting to the best of the best, I think this is where the series are going to get a little bit tighter, and I think it's going to be fairly tight between these two.
Now, Cody, remember when you answer this question, I am writing this all down as we speak for our bracket purposes, just to find out who the better bracket is in the MJHL, the play-by-play voices.
For sure.
Who wins this series and how many games?
I'm not sure if I put a number on how many games, but I did have Vegas winning this one.
But just give me a number off the top of your head. I need one for the purposes.
Vegas in 6.
Vegas in 6. All right. Well, I'm taking San Jose in 6. So
okay.
So
I know my hockey pool would prefer San Jose, but I'm going to take Vegas.
Well, I guess we're going to find out with Game 3 tonight. Switching over, Winnipeg Jets, everybody. It's the wide-out, province-wide whiteout. Winnipeg obviously hasn't been this good in, franchise history. They made the playoffs a couple years back, but they really had no chance against the Anaheim Ducks. Now where people are talking, you know what? This is a team who could win Lord Stanley. We're not even close to that yet. We're playing the Nashville Predators heading into Game 3 tomorrow at Bell MTS Place. It's going to be 15,000 absolutely raucous fans and tens of thousands of people outside. I saw a fact. I think they sold like 10,000 beers at the street party. Like,
I believe it. That's it?
Well, it could be wrong, but
well, no, I haven't heard either. But just with 15,000 people there, that's a lot of people.
That was just the street party. Inside they sold probably.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Another, I don't know, but. Let's get down to it. Winnipeg, Nashville. You look at the first game. I think it was the Connor Hellebuck show. I mean,
absolutely.
We talk about quality over quantity. Quantity. Nashville had a lot of shots, but I don't know how many shots they had quality. I talked to the play-by-play voice of the Jets, Dennis Bayak. Winnipeg does a really good job of pushing the forwards to the outside and dictating where those shots are going to come from. I don't think they did such a good job of that last night. Obviously not. Nashville scored 5 goals, including Kevin Fiala in double overtime. What did you like in the first couple of games from the Winnipeg Jets heading into Game 3 on home ice tomorrow?
Well, you're right. I like the play of Connor Hellebuck in game number 1. He played obviously lights out. He was, I think, one of the main reasons they won that game, kept them in it start to finish. And I like some of the quick strike nature, just the way that the Jets are able to cut in and get some of those chances off the rush. I think that's good against a team like the Nashville Predators. And I was impressed the way everything looked so lopsided in game number 1. Nashville was all over the Winnipeg Jets. They were getting more shots. Yeah, the Jets were getting some quality scoring chances, and yeah, some of the shots, it was still a lot of pressure from Nashville. And I like the way the Jets were able to handle that. Game number 2, I thought the Jets looked better. They were able to get chances, get some sustained pressure. They didn't look overwhelmed. They looked like they came to play, yet that was the game they lost, and the one they were overwhelmed, they won. Just the way it goes sometimes. I think that they can be happy with the way they played, the come from behind. Obviously, and I heard an interview from Blake Wheeler. He knows that they have a few things they need to clean up, but I like the way they played overall in Game 2.
Now, I wholeheartedly think you can win a Stanley Cup with a red-hot goaltender. You cannot win a Stanley Cup with a mediocre goaltender, and he is a star, but right now, Pecorini, I do not believe he is playing to the best of his ability. I know he made some big-time saves yesterday. I'm not taking that away from him, but the first couple of goals he allowed into Scheifele and Byfuglien, especially that one from Byfuglien that went 5-hole, I really don't think going forward, if he continues to play the way he is right now, he might not even be in the pipe. Saros might be taking over, but if he doesn't continue or get better, I really don't think Nashville stands a chance against a very high-powered offense in the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, no, he definitely hasn't played his greatest, and I think with the Jets offense the way it is and scoring a few again, so that's 2 games in a row now with 4 goals. I think that, Nashville could be looking at Saros potentially. But, so we'll just see how it goes. It's kind of the reverse from last series against Minnesota where Dubnyk played so great for the first few games and then blew up in Game 5. Here's the other way around. I'm just hoping that it's not the complete opposite where all of a sudden Rene plays weak for the first few and then shuts the door the rest of the way. Hopefully it's not like that.
Now, do you think he has a little bit extra added pressure to himself after, the run the Nashville Predators made last year? Do you think now that they're playing a very good team in the Jets, Nashville is starting to maybe feel that pressure that, they realistically were picked to win the Stanley Cup, the President's Cup trophy winners? Do you think they're feeling that pressure now?
I think they have to be. I think with the season they had last year, the pressure was on. And we saw that kind of with Ottawa. With the season that they had last year and how far they went, the pressure was definitely on Ottawa. That it's like we went to almost to the Cup final, and we need to get back there and do better this year. And they obviously couldn't handle the pressure. Ottawa was a mess. But I think Nashville, they were able to. They have a better team that they were able to handle that pressure, and they had that all season long. And I hope they're feeling it like crazy, and I hope that affects them. That's just completely me as a Jets fan, but I think they definitely are. I don't see how you could not at least be aware of the pressure.
Now, can we officially call him playoff Brandon Tanev? Like, the guy is playing fantastic. Granted, that goal, I don't know how that went in because, again, Pecorino, I don't think he was up to, the task. He went under his pad, but this guy has been, a star on the Winnipeg Jets in the playoffs at least. How important is he going to be in the success going forward? Like, I know we talk about Scheifele, Wheeler, Bufflin, all those guys, but a guy like Brandon Tanev, how important is he going to be in their success?
Well, yeah, Brandon Tanev is huge, and he had that hat trick near the end of the season. Again, who saw that coming? And just the way he's played, he's helping out the team, doing whatever they ask, and that kind of secondary scoring is essential. You're not going to win the Stanley Cup on one line or two lines even. You need all four lines playing, and Nashville has been rolling their four lines pretty consistently. The Jets were pretty much right there with them, rolling all four lines. That's what it takes, and I think the Jets finally now, after years of building, developing, and getting players like Brandon Tanev and getting to them to where they are right now, they finally have four lines that they can roll out and can contribute. And that's where Nashville was. That's where the other teams, when you see the last few years, have won the Cup. Pittsburgh with their balanced attack, winning it 2 years in a row, spreading out Malkin, Crosby, Kessel. When you can have that balance, that's when you win, and I think you're starting to see that from the Jets.
The whiteout will be in effect in Winnipeg, really all over Manitoba tomorrow. The Jets, 32 wins on home ice, but no slouch of the Predators. They have 25 wins on the road, one of the premier road teams in the NHL. Cody, you're a Jets fan, obviously a huge one. Put that aside, who wins this series and how many games?
Well, I personally have tied both in together, fan and my picks. I have picked the Jets to go all the way. I have been of the opinion, I forget who was saying this a few years ago, the why not us mentality, because really that's all it takes. A couple players getting hot, some good goaltending. We talked about it, the four lines contributing. The Jets have all of that. I see no reason why they could not win this series. I think the Winnipeg Jets, now that they have home ice, they're going to win a couple here at home, and I think they're going to take it. I think it could go the distance, but I'm going to take Jets in 6, winning on home ice.
Well, this could provide a little separation because I picked the Predators. Cody Buhler, the play-by-play voice of the Portage Terriers. Thank you so much for joining me today, Cody.
Hey, no problem. And I also want to throw a quick plug in. I'm also the host of the Jets Nation podcast, so talk a lot more Jets, a lot more focused on that. You can find us on iTunes. You can also find us jetsnation.ca.
Right on. Cody, take care.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.
The First Row Sports Show continues. You're listening.
Don't go anywhere. More of the First Row Sports Show is coming right up.
The First Row Sports Show is brought to you by Pass the Pop, the Parkland Sugar Fix. With access to well over 500 flavors of pop, water, juice, energy drinks, tea, and coffee. They have what you want. Head on down to 215 Main Street North in Dauphin or check them out on Facebook at Pass the Pop Specialty Beverage Company to place an order today.